When you stop being available, everything changes. Have you ever felt like you were an emergency button that anyone could press at any time? The phone rings, you pick it up. A message comes, you reply immediately. A request is made, and you nod your head even though you are exhausted. At first, you think you are living kindly, building the image of someone reliable. But slowly you begin to realize a bitter truth. You have become a shadow in your life. You are present everywhere for others, yet absent within your soul. I remember days like that, a schedule packed with meetings, emails flooding in, and the phone ringing nonstop. When I got home, instead of resting, I picked up calls from family, friends, and relationships that only reached out to me when they needed to vent their stress. I became the lifeline for everyone, and as a result, I sank. I smiled when they needed it, responded instantly so they could feel at ease, and poured all my energy into always being available. But at some point, I began to ask myself, what about me? When is it my turn to be heard, rest, and live true to myself? The worst part isn't that others take advantage of you. The worst part is when you start to believe my value lies in being ready to serve. That is the trap so many of us fall into. We confuse kindness with unconditional sacrifice. The faster we respond and endure patiently, the more others will love and respect us. But the reality is the exact opposite. Pay attention, a glass of water poured without pause will eventually dry. A song played over and over will lose its meaning. And people are the same when you are always available, always saying yes, always responding instantly. Your presence becomes predictable. And whatever is predictable, whatever is in surplus, will sooner or later be taken for granted. I experienced this vividly. At work, I was always the fastest to respond to emails. At first, my boss and colleagues praised me as reliable. But soon that reliability turned into a default expectation. My quick reply became nothing more than what they assumed. The moment I was a little slower, someone would ask, "Why? Why haven't you replied yet?" What began as a voluntary effort on my part became a duty. And that duty, though never written or agreed upon, drained me day by day. In friendship, this was even more painful. I once had friends who called me at all hours and I always answered. They told me everything from work, family, to petty arguments. I listened, I comforted, I tried to calm them down. But then I realized the phone stayed silent when I needed a shoulder. No one ever asked me, "Are you okay?" I realized I had become nothing more than an emotional trash can, a place for them to unload their burdens while my existence was not valued. And in love, it was no different. At one point, I believed that always being ready, yielding, and trying to please my partner was proof of love. But the more I gave unconditionally, the more I was disrespected. Because love does not grow from submission, it grows from respect. And that respect only exists when you know how to protect yourself. It may sound harsh, but this is a truth everyone must face. No one values what is always available. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "Nothing is more overlooked than what is always at hand and always within reach." That is the simple law of life. A rare flower is cherished, but the wildflower by the roadside, abundant and ordinary, is ignored. So if you feel you are being used, drained, forgotten in your own life, this could be the moment that changes everything, because the answer does not lie in doing more or trying harder to be loved. The answer is, do you dare to stop being always available? Stoicism, a philosophy that has lasted for thousands of years, clearly views this. To the Stoics, life is not about chasing every call, every judgment, every demand of others. Life is about learning to control your response and choose what is truly worth your time and energy. And when you dare to stop being always present, you change how others see you and how you see life itself. So please stay with me in this video, because if you have ever felt drained of your vitality, if you have ever asked yourself, who am I living for? Then what I'm about to share may be your way out. I will tell you how the Stoics viewed silence, boundaries, and scarcity as a source of strength. And when you apply it, you will see everything work, friendship, love, begin to change in ways you never imagined. So do not leave, because within the silence you are seeking, you may rediscover yourself. To help you see why this matters so deeply, let us begin with a straightforward question. In today's modern world, why does being always available quietly drain us day after day? Why does being always available silently drain you day after day? Let's be honest, modern society has turned always being available into an unspoken standard. Everyone expects you to be on standby 24/7, from work to friendship to love. If you don't respond quickly, they call you careless. If you don't show up right away when asked, they see you as irresponsible. But few realize that this habit of always being present is silently eroding your energy, your dignity, and even your soul day by day. Let's start with work. Years ago, I was that kind of employee, always on call. The moment Slack pinged, I replied. An email landed in my inbox at 11 at night. I opened my laptop and typed out a response. At first, I thought I was proving my dedication, that I would be trusted by my boss, respected by my colleagues. But the truth was the opposite. After a few months, what was once called dedication became a default obligation. A midnight email from the boss, normal. A colleague, an urgent need. They assumed I'd jump in. And the moment I didn't, I was labeled slow or uncommitted. All because I had dug my hole. I had trained people to expect me to be always on. And when you create that habit, others no longer need to respect your boundaries. But the consequences don't stop at work. In friendship, it cuts deeper. I had friends who would call at any hour, even while I was having dinner or resting, and I always picked up. I thought I was being a good friend, ready to listen and share. But as time went on, I realized I was nothing more than an emotional trash can for them. They only called when they needed, were frustrated, or wanted to unload. But when was I the one having difficulty? When I needed someone to listen. Silence, no message, no call. And in that silence, I saw the truth clearly. Being always available didn't make me more valued, it only turned me into a convenient tool. And in love, the story was even clearer. I once believed love meant always yielding, responding, and showing up whenever others needed me. I thought that the more I gave, the stronger the bond. But the truth, the more I gave unconditionally, the more I was disrespected. Meaningless arguments repeated over and over. I yielded to keep the peace, but in return only met with more demands. And then I remembered the words of Epictetus. You cannot control others, you can only control yourself. I realized that by being endlessly available, I was teaching the other person that love was one-sided, that I would always remain no matter how they treated me. That is no longer love. That is exploitation. Perhaps you felt this, too exhausted but afraid to say no, tired but still answering the phone, annoyed but still forcing a smile to please others. That is how always being available wears you down. Not all at once, but like water dripping steadily onto stone until one day even the stone is worn away. You don't notice when you lose your freedom, but you're only a shadow when you look back. The danger here is that we often convince ourselves, I do this because I'm kind. But in truth, we do it because we're afraid. Afraid of being abandoned. Fearful of being seen as lesser, scared of losing our jobs, terrified of losing friends, afraid of losing love. And that fear turns us into enslaved people to the expectations of others. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The worst kind of slavery is slavery to approval." What destroys us is not work, friends, or love, our dependence on always pleasing others. Then one day, you realize you no longer recognize yourself. You once had hobbies, passions, and dreams, but now they've all vanished, each day consumed by messages, requests, calls. You've become like a 24/7 operator, except no one is paying you. On the contrary, you are paying with your life force, time, and peace of mind. Seneca warned of this thousands of years ago. We are not poor from lack of money, but poor from wasting time. Time is the one thing that can never be regained. Every time you nod when you want to say no, you pay with a piece of time that will never return. And if you add up all those reluctant nods, you may realize your entire life is being drained into things that are not worthy. So ask yourself, how often have you felt exhausted because you were afraid to refuse? How often did you want to turn off your phone but keep it on out of fear of someone's reproach? How many times did you reply to a message simply out of guilt? And every single time you allowed always being available to wear you down. The good news is you don't have to live like this forever. Stoicism shows us another way: peace, self-mastery, and freedom. But to walk that path, you must first accept one truth: you owe no one your unconditional availability. You were not born to be a 24/7 service for anyone. You have the right to choose when and for whom you show up. And that choice is the beginning of true strength. So how do you escape the trap of always being available? How do you apply Stoic philosophy to your daily life so you can remain kind yet protect your peace? Let us step into the next part, where we will explore simple practices that are enough to change how you live, how you love, and how you exist in this world. Applying Stoicism to escape the trap of always being available. Have you ever asked yourself, that sounds nice, but how can I stop being always available when the whole world around me expects the opposite? I once asked myself that exact question. And I discovered the reason we are trapped in this cycle is not because we don't know the theory. It's because we lack the courage to change the way we live. Stoicism is not a philosophy to read and nod at. It is a philosophy to practice. So let's step into practical principles, the ones I applied and my life changed. Practice delaying your reaction. Reclaim your freedom. Epictetus once said, there is always a space between stimulus and response. Within that space lies our freedom. It may sound abstract, but when I applied it to daily life, I realized it is a real superpower. For example, a message arrives. Usually I would pick up my phone and reply instantly, as if tied to the screen by an invisible string. But I realized I had regained control when I tried. Pausing, just taking a deep breath, and silently counting to 5 before responding. The message no longer controlled me. I was the one choosing whether or not to reply. In today's society, we boast about being able to multitask. But the truth is, most of us let others decide what we think, do, and feel with just a single phone ping. If you want to start small, start here. Don't react immediately. When someone attacks you, don't strike back right away. When someone asks for help, permit yourself to say, "Let me think about it." That tiny pause is the foundation of inner freedom. Set boundaries as an act of self-love. There's a Western saying, good fences make good neighbors. And Seneca once reminded us, everyone guards their property, but few guard their time. Yet time is the one thing we can never regain. When I read that line, it struck me straight in the heart. Because every time I said yes, when I wanted to say no, what was I giving away my lifetime? Time is the one thing that can never be replaced or restored. So I began practicing boundaries. My first boundary, shutting off email after 7 p.m. I told my team that I would respond the next morning. My second boundary, I gradually limited those calls if someone called only to complain endlessly. At first, it was highly uncomfortable. I felt guilty, uneasy, as if I had betrayed someone. But then I remembered saying no to others is sometimes saying yes to yourself. And that yes to yourself is the most important of all. Boundaries don't make you selfish. They make you mature. And like any habit, the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. 3. Silence, the secret weapon of the wise. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you have the power to remain silent, you begin to see the essence of things." Think about it. Silence becomes a rare power in a noisy world where everyone wants to speak and prove they are right. I remember a former colleague who constantly attacked me in meetings. Before I would try to justify myself, even snap back at times, but then I tried a different approach to silence. I looked at him, nodded, and said nothing. To my surprise, he grew more agitated, exposing his irrationality, and the entire room began to see clearly that the problem wasn't me. Silence is not surrender. It is a way of conserving energy and keeping the upper hand. And when you are silent, you force others to face themselves. That is why Stoicism sees silence as a form of power. Be selective with where you invest your energy. Stoics treat mental energy as a precious resource. You can invest it in things that yield returns, peace growth, meaningful relationships. Or you can waste it on meaningless arguments, irrelevant drama, and people who only exploit you. Once I tried a simple exercise. I wrote down 3 people or situations that drained me every time I engaged with them. Then I wrote 3 people or activities that left me feeling peaceful, energized, and renewed. I was shocked when I compared the list. Most of my weekly energy was poured into the first group. From that day, I began to change. I reduced time spent on what drained me and devoted more to what nourished me. You can try this too. Just write it down, face the truth, and see where your energy is going and whether it's worth it. 5. Learn to endure necessary solitude. One of the reasons many people never stop being available is that they fear loneliness. They fear that if they don't answer right away, if they don't please others, they will be abandoned. But Stoicism sees solitude as a teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote much of his work during military campaigns, isolated in camps. Seneca wrote his timeless letters while in exile, surrounded by solitude. Both prove that solitude is not an enemy, it is the place where you rediscover yourself. When you dare to spend an evening with no phone, no TV, and no one disturbing you, you may initially feel empty and restless. But gradually you will sense something profound: freedom. You realize you don't need the whole world to exist. You only need a steady soul. All of these practices sound simple, but like going to the gym, no one lifts 100 pounds on the first day. You start with 5, 10 in, and only then 100. Stoic practice is the same. Begin small. 5 seconds of silence, 1 refusal, 1 evening with your phone switched off. Step by step, you will feel true strength rising. And the most beautiful part, when you learn to stop being always available, you are not just protecting your energy, you are preparing to transform the world around you. Because when you change how you show up, others will change how they treat you. And that is precisely what we will dive into next. When you stop being always available, how does the world around you change? Interestingly, the change doesn't just happen inside you when you stop being always available. The outside world also begins to shift in ways you never expected. I witnessed this in my life, from work to marriage to friendships, even on social media. And perhaps you will see yourself in these stories too. Change from the always-on employee to a respected professional. I used to be the kind of employee who answered emails the fastest. Slack pinging at 10 p.m., I replied instantly. A client texting urgently over the weekend, I opened my laptop while my friends were outside grilling BBQ. I thought I was proving my dedication. But in reality, I was teaching people the wrong lesson. I was always available, tolerant, and willing to sacrifice my boundaries. Everything changed when I tried one thing: turning on Do Not Disturb after 7 p.m. At first, I was nervous. A voice inside kept whispering, what if my boss needs me urgently? What if I miss an opportunity? But what I feared never happened. No contract collapsed just because I didn't respond within 5 minutes. And after a few weeks, my colleagues began to adjust to the new boundary. Instead of messaging at midnight, they reached out during working hours. And strangely enough, they began to see me as more professional, someone who knew how to manage both work and self. Seneca once wrote, "Loving is valued when it is always available." I realized how true that was. When you stop being constantly present, your presence becomes more valuable. People listen to you more carefully in meetings. They respect your time because you have taught them how to appreciate it. Change in marriage and love, from blind sacrifice to mutual growth. In love, many fall into the trap of one gives everything, the other only takes. I once watched a friend's marriage fall right into that pattern. She always endured doing all the housework, raising the children, and yielding to her husband in every decision. At first, he saw it as kindness, but over time, he began to assume everything was her duty. Things only shifted when my friends started saying no to carrying all the weight alone or tolerating meaningless arguments. At first, her husband lashed out, "You're selfish," but soon he was forced to grow. He began sharing housework and listening more. And for the first time, their love was built not on blind sacrifice, but on respect. Epictetus once reminded us, "You cannot control others, but when you change yourself, others are forced to change how they treat you." In love, this is even more true. When you stop being always ready to endure, you do not destroy love, you give it a chance to mature. Change in friendships, the real and the fake reveal themselves. This may be the most apparent change. Have you ever felt like someone's emotional trash can? They only call you when they have problems and text you when they need to vent. But when you need support, they vanish. I once had such a friend. She would call me at all hours to complain about relationships or work. And I, wanting to be a good friend, always picked up. Then one day I tried silence. I stopped answering immediately. I left a message. "Hey, I'm busy these days. Let's talk when I have time." And then, she disappeared. No more endless calls, no more long messages. At first I felt sad, but then I realized it wasn't a loss. It was a cleansing. The true friends stayed. They weren't upset when I responded late. Instead, they asked, "Are you okay? Haven't heard from you in a while." In that silence, I saw clearly who was real and who was only there for convenience. The Stoics call this the natural test of relationships. When you stop being always available, what is false disappears. Change on social media. Scarcity creates value. Interestingly, those who appear less and post less are often respected and wondered about more. I used to be like everyone else, posting stories, constantly replying to DMs, instantly checking comments every hour. But the more I did it, the more drained I felt. Something unexpected happened when I started pulling back, no longer responding to everything. My engagement didn't drop. When I did post, people paid more attention. Because my presence became rare, it carried more weight. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Silence is often the most powerful answer." And on social media, this truth is almost undeniable. The initial disruption and the new balance afterward. Of course, when you stop being always available, some people will react negatively. They will accuse you, "You've changed, you don't care anymore." But if you look deeper, you'll see they don't miss you. They miss the convenience you once gave them. And when you no longer offer it, they leave. But don't worry, as those people leave, you begin attracting a different group. People who respect your boundaries. People who come for you, not for your service. And that's the moment you realize the world around you is rebalancing. What is fake falls away. What is real stays and grows. When you stop being always available, your presence becomes valuable. Like every law of life, what is scarce is cherished. What is abundant is overlooked. And as the world responds to your change, you will see something even more profound. It's not only others who change, your very soul is entering a rebirth. And that leads us to the following question. Inside you, what truly changes when you stop being always available? What changes inside you when you stop being always available? In the previous part, we spoke about the changes in the outside world, work, love, friendships, and social media. Now let us turn inward, because the truth is all those external changes are only reflections of something more profound. Your inner world has changed. 1. You rediscover real breathing. Be honest, when was the last time you took a deep breath? Not the shallow gasps stuck in traffic. Not the rushed breathing while checking emails over lunch, but a long, full breath that made you feel alive. The first time that feeling returned was when I turned off my phone. It sounds silly, but it's true. Without messages, emails, and notifications constantly pulling at me, I could sit still, inhale deeply, and exhale slowly. And in that moment, I realized I had not been living in the present for a long time. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The one who finds calm within will not be shaken by the noise outside." That is not abstract philosophy, it is a lived experience. When you stop being always available, the first thing that returns to you is presence, the ability to live fully in this moment. 2. You reclaim your energy instead of letting it leak away. The Stoics saw human mental energy like a river. It will soon run dry if you allow everyone to scoop from it. That's why so many come home after work with nothing left, collapsing in front of the TV, Netflix, running mind blank. I was once like that. Every time my phone buzzed, I answered immediately. Whenever someone needed to vent, I became their emotional gatekeeper. But I noticed a strange shift when I started being selective, no longer replying, instantly taking every call. I was retaining energy for myself. Instead of pouring it into other people's drama, I invested it in reading in the gym, sitting down at dinner, and truly talking with my family. At that moment, I understood Seneca's words more deeply. We are not poor from lack of time, but poor from wasting it. When you stop being always available, you become rich again, rich in energy, presence, and ability to live authentically. 3. You see the truth about your relationships. I used to ask myself, why do I feel lonely when I have so many friends? And then I realized not everyone around me was truly a friend. But I couldn't see it because I was always reacting and always saying yes to every call. When I stopped being always available, the truth became clear. Those who disappeared when I no longer served them, they were never real friends. On the other hand, those who stayed, were patient, and checked in, that was true friendship. Seneca once said, "We are not poor from lack of friends, but from clinging to the wrong ones." This became a living truth for me. Stopping the habit of always being available did not make me lonelier. It reduces false loneliness, the kind you feel even in a crowd. Instead, I ended up with fewer people but far more genuine connections. 4. You discover a new kind of freedom. People think freedom means politics, free speech, or doing whatever you want. But for the Stoics, freedom is simpler. Freedom is when you are no longer a slave to emotions or the demands of others. When I was always available, I was not free. I was a slave to the phone's ping, a slave to 11 p.m. calls, a slave to other people's expectations of instant replies. But when I dared to say, "Let's talk tomorrow," when I dared not reply or switch off notifications, I felt freedom open up. That freedom did not distance me from others. It brought me closer. Because instead of scattering myself across 20 people, I was truly present for the 2 or 3 who mattered most. Instead of chasing 100 emails, I focused on doing the core work well. Instead of reacting to every comment online, I smiled, let go, and kept living. 5. You become a different person, deeper, calmer. There was one thing I never expected when I changed inside. Others sensed it immediately. I no longer had to argue to prove I was right. I no longer had to raise my voice to be respected. Simply walking into a room calmly, people looked at me differently. That is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "True strength lies in controlling yourself, not in controlling others." When I stopped being always available, I was no longer an empty shell pulled in every direction. I became a deeper, fuller version of myself. And this is the most critical lesson. Stopping the habit of always being available does not make you cold. It allows you to become your true self. Inside you, a rebirth takes place. You are no longer the one running after every request. You become the one who chooses, protects energy, and lives in the present. And this inner transformation is the root from which everything outside begins to change. That leads us to the final question. How can we apply Stoicism to daily life so that stopping the habit of always being available is not just an idea, but a sustainable way of living? How to apply Stoicism to escape the trap of always being available? We have traveled a long road from seeing the exhaustion that comes with always being available to observing how the world changes its treatment of you, and then the profound inner transformations within yourself. But if we stop at "that sounds nice" and do nothing, then nothing truly changes. Stoicism is not a philosophy to read in a cafe to appear intellectual. It is a philosophy to practice day by day, hour by hour, in the ordinary moments of life. So how do we turn stopping the habit of always being available into a sustainable lifestyle rather than just a fleeting idea? 1. Learn to delay your reaction. Claim your pause. Epictetus once emphasized, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom. And that freedom is the most incredible power you can ever possess. Look around modern life. You'll see most people have lost that space. The phone pings and they reply instantly. Someone mocks them on Facebook and they jump into an argument. The boss sends an email at 10 p.m. and they open the laptop to respond. They think it shows agility and multitasking, but it shows that the outside world controls their entire inner world. Stoic practice begins with something tiny. Create the pause. When a message arrives, take a deep breath instead of replying right away. When someone attacks, count slowly to 5. When someone asks for a favor, give yourself the right to say, "Let me think about it." That slight pause is the fence protecting your inner world. I tried this in meetings. Before, if someone challenged me, I reacted instantly. Now I pause for just a few seconds. Strangely, that silence calmed me and made the whole room listen more carefully. You begin reclaiming freedom in just a few seconds of not reacting. 2. Set boundaries as an act of self-love. In the West, there is a saying, "Good fences make good neighbors." Stoicism also teaches that boundaries are the fences that keep your soul from being invaded. Seneca once warned, "Everyone guards their property, but few guard their time." Yet time is the one thing we can never get back. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, what are you giving away? Not just a few minutes, but a piece of your life. And that is your most precious asset. So learn to set boundaries. Start small. Turn off email after work. Set do not disturb mode after 9 p.m. Tell your friends you need a quiet evening for yourself. Or even firmly refuse when someone repeatedly takes advantage of your kindness. At first, you'll feel guilty. Others may call you selfish or cold. But remember, saying no to others is sometimes saying yes to yourself. And that is the most important yes you'll ever give. 3. Turn silence into strength. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you can remain silent, you begin to see the essence of things." Silence becomes rare in a society where everyone talks, argues, and insists on being right. I once had a colleague who would attack me without reason during meetings. In the past, I defended myself immediately, even argued back. But the more I reacted, the more he won, because what he wanted was my reaction. Later, I chose silence. I looked at him, nodded, and said nothing. Strangely enough, the more silent I was, the more unsettled he became. And slowly, the whole room realized the problem was not me. Silence in that moment was more potent than 1,000 justifications. Stoicism teaches us that words are not always needed to prove value. Sometimes silence is the loudest voice. 4. Be selective with where you invest your energy. The Stoics saw mental energy as currency. You can invest it in things that yield profits, peace, true friendship, and personal growth. Or you can waste it on losses, pointless arguments, one-sided relationships, or dramas that have nothing to do with you. Here's a small exercise. Write down 3 people or situations that leave you drained after every encounter. Then write 3 that leave you peaceful. Ask yourself, how much energy are you giving to the first group? How much to the second? By changing that ratio, you change the quality of your entire life. 5. Learn to endure necessary solitude. One of the reasons we are always available is fear of loneliness. Fear that if we don't reply instantly, people will abandon us. But the Stoics saw solitude differently, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote meditations during long military campaigns surrounded by isolation. Seneca wrote his greatest letters in exile, cut off from everyone. It was within solitude that they discovered the deepest freedom. Solitude teaches you that you don't need the whole world to exist. You only need a steady soul. And when you learn to endure necessary solitude, something strange happens. Loneliness is no longer frightening. It becomes the space for creativity, reflection, and returning to yourself. 6. Start small. Be patient, like training in the gym. This may sound simple, but making it a habit is another matter. Like the gym, you don't lift 100 pounds on the first day. You start with 5, then 10, then eventually 100. Stoicism is the same. Don't set the goal of tomorrow I will never react impulsively again. Begin small, 5 seconds of silence before you reply. Refusing one request you genuinely don't want to accept. Turning off your phone for one evening. Small actions repeated consistently will slowly build inner strength. If we apply Stoicism and truly stop being always available, this does not just change us, it frees us from the invisible chains quietly enslaving our lives. The final lesson: release the pain, rediscover inner freedom. We have come full circle from the exhaustion of always being available to the shift in how the world treats you when you set boundaries, and then the profound inner changes that come with silence and selective energy. And finally, the most critical question remains: what do you truly gain when you dare to stop being always available? From my own experience and through the light of Stoicism, the answer can be summed up in 2 words: inner freedom. Freedom from the pain you create for yourself. One of the most profound Stoic lessons I have learned is this: most pain does not come from events themselves, but from how we react to them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If something external causes you distress, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment of it. And you always have the power to change your judgment." When I was always available, my pain multiplied. A single email from my boss was not just an email, it became a panic. A message from a friend was not just a message, it became pressure to respond immediately. A sarcastic comment online was not just sarcasm, it became a dagger piercing my ego. All of it hurt more than it should, simply because I refused to give myself a pause. But when I began practicing Stoicism, when I stayed silent, delayed reactions, and set boundaries, I discovered this truth: most of my pain was self-amplified. And when I released it, the pain dissolved. That was the first liberation. 2. Freedom from the control of others. Epictetus once said, "Do you want to be free? Then stop wishing for things to happen as you want them to. Stop worrying about what is not within your control." I used to feel like a puppet. Others pressed a button and I jumped. My boss texted and I replied instantly. Friends called and I dropped everything to listen to their complaints. Family asked and I sacrificed myself to exhaustion. I thought it was love-duty loyalty, but in truth, it only made me predictable and easy to control. When I stopped being always available, when I built boundaries, others began to change the way they treated me. They no longer saw my presence as automatic. They learned to respect my space. And those who couldn't accept it, they left. At first it hurt, but I realized it wasn't a loss. It was purification. For the first time, I felt free from the trap of pleasing everyone. 3. Freedom to live a life with purpose. In America, we often confuse being busy with living with purpose. But Seneca warned us 2,000 years ago. People are so busy doing life that they forget what life truly is. When you stop keeping yourself always in available mode, you begin to reclaim time for real living. Instead of checking emails at midnight, you can read a book. Instead of diving into group chat drama, you can spend a quiet evening with your children. Instead of being pulled into trivial distractions, you can pour your energy into a project that genuinely matters to you. That is the difference between living a life controlled by others and living a life of intention. And the paradox is, when you choose the latter, the world begins to respect you more. People may not say it outright, but they feel the strength of someone who knows what they want and cannot be shaken by every pull and demand. 4. Freedom to love and to be loved truly. When you stop being always available, you cut away relationships built on exploitation. At first, there will be emptiness, but over time, that emptiness will be filled with what is genuine. True friends will not leave because you didn't answer a midnight message. A true partner will not call you selfish just because you said, "I need to rest." Real love, as the Stoics remind us, is built on respect. And only when you dare to set boundaries do you allow others to show that respect. Silence, refusal, solitude. What you once feared suddenly become natural filters. They keep the real ones close and let those seeking convenience disappear. 5. Inner freedom, the ultimate lesson. One evening, after months of practicing Stoicism, I sat alone in a quiet room. No phone, no emails, no TV, just silence. And for the first time in years, I felt enough. I no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone. The fear of missing out no longer tore me apart. I just sat there breathing and felt free. That was when I understood what the Stoic philosophers wanted to pass down true. Freedom is not about escaping the outside world, but breaking the chains inside yourself. When you stop being always available, you stop letting others dictate your emotions, actions, and worth. You reclaim sovereignty over your own life. And from there, you can live more peacefully, love more deeply, and stand more firmly against the world's chaos. 6. The lesson for you, if there is one thing I want you to remember after all of this, it is this. No one values what is always available. Do not turn yourself into a free resource for everyone. Your actual value is only seen when you know how to hold back, how to choose how to stay silent, and how to say no. Don't fear losing people. Don't fear being misunderstood. The only thing you should fear is losing yourself in the trap of always available. Now, please try one small action. After watching this video, choose one thing you will no longer be available for. It could be turning off email notifications after 7 p.m. It could be saying no to a favor you don't want to do. It could be sitting still for 10 minutes without touching your phone. Just one small act. But that will be the first brick in building the inner freedom you deserve. If you've listened this far and feel something shifting inside you, even just a small spark, don't let it fade. Share this video with a friend, a colleague, anyone you know who is trapped in the cycle of always being available. One click to share may help them rediscover their breath and the freedom they have lost for so long. And if you want to keep walking this path to keep learning how to live stronger and more peacefully through Stoicism, hit subscribe. Each day, I will bring you stories and lessons that can reach the deepest places of your soul, reminding you that you are not alone on this journey, because when you stop being always available to the world, that is the moment you finally become truly available to yourself. See you in the following video.